Hello everybody, my name is David Watts and I am the editor of What's What magazine, and recently a lot of people have been talking to me about the state of the fashion business. So we've decided to do a few vlogs and a few podcasts which are in the development about the fashion industry, so you have to bear with us. Today's topic is Calvin Klein and the exit of Raf Simons, their creative director, before the end of his contract, which happened recently and is all over the fashion business news. My personal take on the situation is that I never believed Raf, incredibly talented as he is, was a good fit for Calvin Klein. He's very innovative, he's very forward thinking, he loves art and art collaborations and is very specific about his creative DNA. But given that Calvin Klein are predominantly jeans and underwear brand, much as I wouldn't like to think of themselves that way, it was a really strange decision to take to actually put Raf in the situation as chief creative officer. I think you can talk about the success of Gucci and Calvin Klein wanting to be exactly like that in America. I think there were a couple of fundamental problems with that. Calvin Klein don't have that ready-to-wear collection history. They don't have retail. They had one store in Madison Avenue. Their wholesale business is was incredibly poor. They didn't have many accounts worldwide. So it was very strange to understand why they believed they could just suddenly elevate the ready-to-wear collection into something that, tens of thousands, if not millions of people are going to buy. And I suspect the board at Calvin Klein looked at Gucci and thought, it's extraordinary, the growth, it's very specific, and we can do the same by hiring a creative guru like Raf Simons to come in and do exactly the same thing. I believe that what they didn't take into account was actually they didn't have that profile as a ready-to-wear collection. I think even the previous or earlier Calvin Klein board suggested that their entire ready-to-wear collection was just a marketing exercise, and a multi-million-dollar marketing exercise, but it generated sales of jeans and underwear. It is the most famous, iconic underwear brand on the planet, and turned over billions of dollars, one suspects. Now, changing that into a ready-to-wear collection at the luxury designer end of the market is a very different ask. I also believe that the American market is so different from the European market in terms of ready-to-wear. So they were up against it right from the outset. I think they wanted to be Gucci. They thought all the formula, all the plan, the strategy, by putting something like Raf, arty, editorial, inspired by creative artists and other things, would just translate into ready-to-wear collections that the American consumer would buy, and in fact didn't. And after a very short period, it was a radical change to what Calvin Klein were known for, and historically in terms of the brand. But again, you can't turn something that isn't actually in existence, a ready-to-wear collection that's selling incredibly well to the consumer on the high street, to people that are very niche, very selective, very specific. I think the extraordinary thing about Calvin Klein and Raf was, it was very specific, it was very arty, and it was very niche, but that's the point, not 1% of the population. And in real terms, that's not going to be the people who are Mr. Everyman or your average consumer who's going to buy into that Calvin Klein ready-to-wear collection, particularly given it was eye-wateringly expensive. £600 for cotton shirts. It was bonkers, some might say. And it's a shame because they spent tens of millions of dollars on developing, the first 2 years of the collections. And I think, it's reported that they were paying Raf $16 million a year, and an entire new makeover of the stores, of the branding. Globally, it must have been, literally tens of millions. So it's a very hard lesson, I think, to brands that think that you can just replicate the magic that happens in fashion. As talking with a colleague in the industry, fashion is so ethereal. It can't be replicated. It's very difficult to make the same thing happen twice. Calvin Klein thought they could be Gucci. They learned the hard way. Even Gucci on paper, if you look back to when Alessandro Michele launched his first collection, you would say, that could have gone the other way. You know, it was so out there, it was so radical, but yet it was so personal to him. He knew Gucci from the inside because he'd been there for years, under the radar. But the extraordinary boom in what Gucci were able to do, but again, because they've got hundreds of retail stores, the brand is embedded in the psyche as, you know, as uber designer from the Tom Ford days when he reinvented Gucci, when it was from bankruptcy almost. So again, doesn't translate automatically, and it's a great shame because I think Calvin Klein have now gone vault fast and they want to do, you know, take it back to the average consumer or Mr. Every person, which is, you know, quite challenging. The rumors are that they're bringing in a new creative head, but we shall wait to see and see what happens next. That's my take on Calvin Klein. Have a good day.